I'm Frank Vaughn. It's October 21st, 2025, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to respond to your comments, as many of them as I can possibly get to. I often say at the end of videos that I appreciate each and every one of you for all the time you give the channel, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours of your time watching the videos. One of the greatest pressures in my life is the feeling that I'm wasting your time and trying not to do so. But I also appreciate each and every one of you who have reached out and donated, whether it was for $1 or any amount. One of the agreements that I've made trying to keep things ad-free and do things the way that I do things is that I don't reach out individually and thank individual donors. It's part of a rule. I don't want you to pay for access. I don't want you to feel like you can get access for being paid. But I read your comments. I read through, or at least thumb through, all of the emails that come in. Some of you are quite verbose, and you write on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times with links. I try to review it all, but I don't respond to all of it. You're all appreciated, and I thought today would be a good day to just read some comments and respond. I never do this, so let's do that. Starting off the top in no particular order. Well, actually, it is particular order. It's newest comments first. Deborah says, "Chortle, I find it interesting how we can see the same situation differently. As I have mentioned before, I do not find your broadcast depressing but inspiring. It is golden to hear someone recognize and speak the truth. As awful as it is, we cannot affect change if we do not recognize the problems. It is invigorating to hear the truth well spoken and gives me energy to trust what I see. The affirmation is empowering. Thank you so much. And thank you, too, for all the reasons aforementioned. I am trying to be trustworthy in that I'm honest. I don't want to pretend that I'm right or that I have some kind of secret knowledge. I'm a schmuck with a webcam, and I put a lot of time into trying to understand the world and then communicate it with you. It's you folks, your feedback over the years, that have drawn me back and give the entire project value. If you told me I sucked and you didn't spend any time here, I would more than happily disappear. But I realized, especially after the last break, which was entirely necessary when you have people showing up at your house and you have a life to get in order and you have a new family and all these things, and you have to basically reorganize and rearrange the way that you interact with and approach the world and even where you live on the face of the planet. I realize there's this community that doesn't go away, and it grows, and there's people behind it. And even if my urge would be to stop all of this, stop making videos, stop interacting on social media, and just go do manual labor. I mean, I really like it. I like working with my hands. I like growing things. I like chopping wood. I like manual labor. I like the quiet. My nature is introverted, which may surprise some of you who have come to public events and heard me speak at public events and met me and see the kind of work I'm in, but I am definitely an introvert who has learned to fake, at least according to you guys, fairly well being an extrovert. But we're all on an even playing field here. That's also part of it. Just one playing field for everybody. Thanks for the comment, Deborah. Sydney Carlton, love your show, Frank, but I got to disagree with your view of Russia and China not being concrete allies. They are. They are aiming to upend the U.S. as the world superpower. A war is coming. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, U.S. versus U.S. and Israel and whoever joins them. In a way, I can agree with that. I can see where you're coming from, but I also have to disagree. Historical context. Russia and China are not natural allies. They have to be pushed together by outside pressure. When that outside pressure is not there, they don't play well together. They're ethnically different. They're culturally different. And there's a whole pile of people, depending on who you ask, 800 million, a billion, billion two, on one side of the border, and there's almost nothing on the other side of the border. What does China have? What can China not make? Land. They can't manufacture more land, but they do have a border with a nation that has all kinds of land and nobody living on it. There's a natural friction, a natural tension there, and there has to be outside pressure to overcome that tension, and we are giving them. By cutting Russia off from SWIFT was one of the worst, stupidest decisions we ever made, because it put the world on notice that the same thing could happen to them, and they're building an alternative system. And you're right. It will upend the United States as the world's superpower. I don't even agree with that. Sorry. The United States moment of hegemony has been over for 20 years, 25 years, really. Ever since the World Trade Centers came down, for whatever reason they came down, the unipolar era was ending then, and it is well and truly ended now. The United States is not the superpower that everybody thinks it is. It is a peer competitor with other nations on the planet. But the people who have been guiding the United States, under the Clintons, under the Bushes, under the Obamas, under the Bidens, within the Republican Party itself, a lot of the Republican Party, has been content to promote, to one degree or another, this World Economic Forum, United Nations, IMF, City of London, agreed approach to global affairs and philosophy and a geopolitical order. That geopolitical order is being shrugged off. China doesn't want to play ball. Russia doesn't want to play ball. India doesn't want to play ball. The rest of the world is saying, you know what? We don't really want to be dominated by the kings and queens of Europe and the nobility whose names most people don't even know. It's not even worth making a video on this channel. I mean, the information is publicly available. It doesn't make a difference. It's this group of elites that want to run everything. And individual nations have said, we're not doing it. And so the United States, you can see them as an enemy. I'm sure, at the very least, it should be clear to everybody that China and Russia and the United States are rivals. You could say even India rising is a rival. That there's this new multipolar order coming into shape. But if, as I accept, the administration and the people surrounding the administration in the United States right now are committed to a different elite, let's say. I don't want to paint it in too great a picture. There's a lot of people who just want to pretend it's going to be this beautiful, heroic, uninterrupted journey towards greater liberty for the citizen, and really in reality there's a group of elites that care more about the Constitution and those outcomes, and they want those outcomes for America, for North America, for a more limited group. Their values, to put it more simply, don't align with those Davos elites. They're still elites, and they're still fighting over who's going to control the destiny of the United States and North America. Now, if you accept that there's a change within that structure, that there's a change in point of view, and there's a battle ongoing, then China and Russia, looking at the United States as enemies, is challenged because the new thinking is not as adversarial. They all have to figure out how to live in the same world, but U.S. foreign policy becomes less interested in interfering with their spheres of influence, like a reshuffling and a rebalancing of the world. But my point is that it seems to me, anyway, that it's the European order that's the number one enemy to all the nation states that are committed to being nations and having their own spheres and not subscribing to this top-down imposed unipolar order that emanates from the City of London and New York and Europe. They don't want to go along with it. And if the American administration is signaling that they don't want to go along with that order either, and I mean, we're all here united in our rejection of, on this channel at least, the World Health Organization and their edicts and the EU and all of the things we talk about. If the American administration is seen by the national players and the rest of the world as rejecting the same, then they're no longer enemies. They may not be allies, and that's my point. When I said that Russia and China are not natural allies, they're not. They have to be pressured into it. And neither are, I wouldn't say that China and the United States are natural allies. They're rivals. But all the rivals on the planet right now have a common enemy that emanates from Europe and emanates from the City of London and has infected most of the Western world. There's a shrugging off of that. There's a battle ongoing to try and do something different. There's every chance that that battle may not end in success for those different forces, but it's the only game in town. I'm not into what we just went through for the last couple decades. I don't like the fiat money system, which allows them to rob you blind, not through taxation, but through inflation, by printing money and giving it to their friends. The absence of sound money, all of these concepts are anathema to me. And if there's a chance, If there's a real chance, first off, that we don't fight World War III, second of all, that we can shrug off these corrupt globalists, this old mindset, if there's a chance we can do something different under one of a small basket of national flags, I'd like to do it with the United States, with that powerful constitution and powerful people power, rather than stay under a European yoke, which is where Mark Carney wants to take us, or realign ourselves with China, which is a totalitarian nation. It's not. It's not. It's just not palatable to me to want to live under the communist Chinese. There's only one game in town. Canada doesn't have a military to speak of. Canada has let its guard down. We've allowed ourselves to become, even W5 is covering it. The propaganda push, let me touch on this. We've only 2 comments deep and I'm already 11 minutes in. I'm just going to go with it. The propaganda push that's coming now, ever since the Liberals announced they're going to do bail reform, I see, and other people have reported this, articles from 2022 and 2024, news events about violence that have happened in the past, popping up in your feed, pre-programming you for this. I don't know, actually, let me dial that back, because it just could be the algorithm responding to everybody's individual interest. But, if it was just the algorithm responding to renewed interest, there's enough interest out there in bail reform. People are sick of getting stabbed and running into the person who stabbed them on the street later that afternoon because they've been released. People are sick of tripping over drug addicts everywhere and sending their kids on buses that have got meth heads. Like, people are sick of the whole thing. The interest has been there. So, I'm not really sure about that algorithmic example, but the point being, W5 is now just did a special right here. Actually, I'll just flip it up. Cartel Canada. W5's Avery Hines investigates a Canadian meth pipeline. Came out 2 days ago. This is a problem that's been here for a decade. Sam Cooper, myself, others, we've been declaring this from the rooftop. We haven't had a single call from CTV or any other mainstream media outlet to talk about the scale of the problem, or I'm pretty sure the DEA in the United States hasn't got a phone call. Border Services hasn't got a phone call. They're not really exploring the problem until the Liberals came along and started talking about bail reform. That's when this starts popping up. Really interesting timing. At any rate, if there's a chance to break out of this funk, I want to take it. The status quo is not acceptable. If you had to make a choice between European elites and Chinese elites, I think you'd have to have a serious think on that, which one you'd pick, because they both suck. But in the presence of the United States and the greatest economic relationship on the planet, I don't think there's any need to have that conversation. Whew. 13 minutes, 2 comments. Brenda Buckler, thank you for bringing this out for what it is, responding to the end of Davos. You're welcome, Brenda. Nide Travisa? Nide Travisa. Frank, I look forward to your videos. They're a source of truth and realism of what's going on in our country and economy. I try. That's all I can do, is I try. I don't have a political axe to grind. I don't have a particular ideological pursuit that I'm trying to endeavor towards. I'm trying to be a pragmatist. I'm trying to be an honest pragmatist. Even if I get things wrong or you disagree with me, I'm literally just trying to be honest and pragmatic in my approach, and without selling anything. Because not even just selling anything, not even rewarding you for your support. I'm giving you this. You support it by watching it or by donating to it. And that's the relationship. That's as far as it goes. I want to be trustworthy, pragmatic, and as honest as possible. And I want to signal that every day in the approach. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But so far, it's working. We're here. I'm not going anywhere. Miss Kichi says, something smells off. Is anyone else noticing this, or is it just me? I'm getting 0 notifications from YouTube on any of the independent media channels. Meanwhile, the big polished official networks pop up like clockwork. Seem YouTube's idea of neutral algorithms might be more about steering the narrative than serving the viewer. And I'll just read a response from Rosie Leb. Agree. My YouTube defaults to MSN, so if I don't pick a video, it starts a CBC video, which I boycott, or CTV. That's playing dirty in my view. Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't want to call it old news because I'm not trying to be dismissive of it. It's just we know for half a decade at least that YouTube's got their thumb directly on it. The algorithm puts the mainstream media at the top of searches. It's very hard, actually, to just, you have to use a third-party search engine to find old YouTube videos, and you got to really have a good memory for what you've seen in order to find it, because the algorithm doesn't want to show it to you. Like, you type in things about Trump, you're going to get MSN sources. You're getting no alternative voices. You're just getting spoon-fed MSM stuff all the time. So, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so funny because there was a Senate hearing, I think it was a Senate hearing, or it was testimony before the House, years and years ago, where a Google executive went and was asked by a congressman or a senator if they manipulate the algorithm. And they said no. They lied before Congress, or they lied before the Senate. They said no. Their whole business model is about manipulation of the algorithm. If you pay them money, they'll manipulate it on your behalf, whether it's the search engine or whether it's YouTube. If you want to advertise, what are they doing but manipulating the results that are fed to you in your channel? So anyway, it's not just you. It's just real. 403 Pantera, interesting name. Pantera's all right. F&A Frank, that'll be all. Short, sweet. Peter Venema says, the sooner Canada, in all caps, severs all ties, severes. The sooner Canada severes, I like that, severes, all ties at all levels with that criminal organization called the monarchy and the colonial overlords in the British Parliament, the better it will be for this country, and seek closer economic and political ties with the United States, because we have a lot in common with the U.S. and than we do with that godforsaken island off the coast of Europe. Rosie Leb says, we have to fasten to the United States freedom, U.S. freedom, before Carney hands us over to China. Marx allows way too much infiltration, in my opinion. It's like for these guys, for Carney, it's a competition between what does Europe get and what does China get. There's not really and I think it undermines us. Like, if anything, it might serve our interests to get closer with the United States. And this idea, like, seek closer economic, you're right, seek closer ties. We're already so close, you know? Like, we're tied at the hip. We live beside each other. Like, they're right there. And they have all this money. And they buy our stuff. Like, we're already doing it. Why break what works? Because Trump's president, he won't be around forever. There will be another president that comes along. And we'll still be living side by side. These are the people we have to deal with. We trade with them to enormous amounts. North America is already integrated. What are we doing? We're just wasting time. And in wasting time, we're kicking people in the teeth. We're kicking the people who want to prosper in the teeth. Let's get building. Let's get the energy pumping. Let's make things cheaper. Let's get on with sound money. That might be a pipe dream. I mean, I even, as I indicated yesterday, I see reasons to believe that the world, and this may still take years yet. I mean, there was somebody messaging me this morning and said silver's down 560, as if I care what the oscillations are on a daily basis. If I care, like, what gold is doing. Currency debasement's the norm. So they can screw around and suppress prices, but eventually fiat money doesn't last forever. A reckoning's coming, not just for the Canadian dollar, but for the US dollar and every other currency out there that's based on fiat. And I see and I perceive the powers that be in the world, let's call them the nationalists, are preparing for that. And when I say nationalists, I mean the communist Chinese. They're nationalists. They actually have a lot more in common with National Socialism than they do with international communism. But I think that's maybe a subject for its own video someday or never. It doesn't really matter. They're a brand of totalitarianism, but it's very much ethnic and nationally focused. They're not a multicultural, diverse society. In fact, they're trying to stamp it out and replace it with one unitary Chinese culture. Yeah. The U.S. is the only game in town. Serenity says, you're the best, Frank. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your time, Serenity. Like, for real, all of you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. This relationship, it's such a weird thing because it's like, it's almost blind. It's like the only evidence I have that it's worthwhile is when I read the comment section and these interactions. Like, there's no private communication. All of our comms that we engage in are open. There's a few people I email back and forth with for different reasons, but I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm not trying to peel capital out of them. It's just sometimes relationships become private. They bridge into your personal life. I don't have a lot of people I talk to in my personal life. I mean, I have my family. I have a couple friends and a brother that I talk to and a cousin that I talk to. I have one friend, one brother, and a cousin. Actually, I should say I have two friends. And I don't speak to them often because everybody's doing their own thing. They're busy, right? I commiserate more with you guys in the comments section or through these videos than I do with these other people, except for my kids and my wife. So you guys kind of are this quasi-extension of my personal life, but there's no direct engagement. Like, people keep asking if I'm going to set up a Discord or something. I don't know if I want to. I'm trying to keep it like demonstrably neutral, like trustworthy in every way, so that when a new person comes in and they start figuring out how things operate different here, that even if they think I'm a babbling idiot and they don't like what I'm saying, they should at least know I'm honest in the end. Jan F says, Frank, your video started off with a comment that a viewer found your videos depressing. What you managed to provide is an analysis in plain language what the situation is in Canada and globally. There are so many moving parts, and who we think are the good guys are not, and who we think are the bad guys are not. USA, Russia, and China are working together for good, for defeat of the globalists. There are a lot of actors in this movie, and an unbelievable script is being rolled out. You've provided facts and evidence that the cabal are being defeated. There are indeed many silver linings. Hopefully people will take advantage. We have to be the change. We have to be the ones that move forward to make the changes we need. Our kids depend on us to resist and act. Frank, thanks for your work. Good news indeed. Well, I appreciate the kind words. Sometimes I'm not so sure it's good guys versus bad guys at all, except in the spiritual realm, where I think it is a battle between good and evil. That's a whole other subject. But it's competing interests, right? I don't know who's good. I don't know who's evil. Who am I to even try and pass judgment on that? But I think there's interests, and I see this cohesion of interests among rivals against these sick people who have ran the show from on high, this global order that emanates from Europe. I think the world has had enough of it, and they want to do something different. And that is fraught with all of its own peril. No doubt about it. But look, some of the things I've been working on, because there's all these ideas for videos, and I spend a lot of time researching those ideas with the intention of putting something together. And I'm telling you, I put a lot of time into this concept where I want to talk about Charlie Kirk, and I want to talk about the forces behind political assassination in the United States and link it to a bunch of other things like the Franklin cover-up and what went on with Manson and how tight-knit the CIA and MK Ultra-like programs that are not the realm of conspiracy theory. This stuff is publicly admitted, and it was going on, and it was real close to Charles Manson at the time. And there is a huge cloak of silence around the people who know what happened, those that are still alive at that time. And what you find is when you look at JFK, or you look at Bobby, or you look at Martin Luther King, or you look at Charlie Kirk, you find the same fingerprints. You find the same patterns, right? And I think maybe I hope, but I think the evidence suggests, at the very least, that there's an element, maybe not in its entirety, but there's an element within the Trumpian way of thinking that is breaking away from that, at least somewhat. There's nuance there, because you have to reckon with the fact that there's a cover-up about the E-man, Jeffrey. There's a cover-up about Jeffrey. There's weird stuff going on with his wife. We were gaslit over that. We know who he was. We know he's an intelligent, or he was an intelligence asset. We know his wife probably was too. We have an idea of the two intelligence agencies that he was interfaced with. We know he was worth billions of dollars. It's never been about a client list. We already know that. We already know who was on the planes. We know the kinds of things that they were up to. For me personally, when it comes to children and what they were doing with minors, there's no justification for getting in the way of justice on that and not providing full disclosure and charging those involved. That's me. The Trump administration, on the other hand, clearly has different ideas, and we can discuss the reasons why they would cover up something like that. It's certainly not the first time in U.S. history, but alongside of these questions, and even with Charlie Kirk, it seems everybody's just kind of moved on. Or not everybody, but a lot of people have just moved on from that. You know, if you're a thinking person, you don't think that World Trade Center 7 came down by itself without some kind of help. If you believe in physics, if you don't buy magic bullet theories, whether they're concocted in 1963 or they've been concocted in 2025, when you see the same patterns over and over again, you know that there's an element behind the scenes that is, how would I say? There's an invisible battle. So I'm not sure I see 100% good, 100% evil. I see interests. I like some of the moves and some of the changes that the Trump administration is doing. Fentanyl, cartels, illegal immigration. Basically trying to save the republic, at least internally, and trying to extricate America from its foreign policy warfare blunders. And also trying to, the speech at the UN was very clear. There's this distinction between what the United States and the group of elites that support the Trumpian idea and those who support the Davos idea. There's a break there. So, I'm not there. I'm not in the White House. I don't know what everybody's thinking, but I do see cause for optimism, which is what yesterday's video was about. It was just communicating the optimism. I don't feel bleak and depressed. I don't feel dark about the world. Maybe it's because I've just spent so much time thinking about it. I'm comfortable with the idea of what's coming. There's pain ahead for Canada. There's pain ahead for every single Canadian citizen, and it's going to be hard. No matter what you're into or what you're trying to cover or what your situation is, it's going to be hard to watch the country go broke and the pressures to break it up happen, and people around you suffer because even your political opponents, I fear for them the worst. There's the saying that Jesus gave us, which is, forgive them, they know not what they do, attributed to him on the cross while he's getting killed. Here we are in a political debate, watching our nation's monetary structure and financial viability and sovereignty completely gutted over the last 40 years. It ain't happening now. It ain't Donald Trump that broke this country and gave it away and carved it up. It's been happening for 40 years, and people have barely noticed. So maybe I'm just already into the pain. I've already felt it. I've already processed it. I can see what's coming, and there's a lot of people who are going to hurt, and I'm going to be struggling to just survive too. No one's going to be immune. I don't care how wealthy you are. You're going to have to struggle to either try and preserve that wealth or preserve yourself. If you're living in the cities, things are going to get more uncomfortable. That's how I see things coming. But as grim as all that sounds, I started out by saying I'm optimistic. I just view these as birth pains. I've witnessed 2 babies come into the world. I've seen how painful that process is, not just on the day of birth, but all the challenges that go in behind it. That last 3 months, waddling around like a walrus and having your ankles go numb because they're so full of water. I mean, there's a lot that goes into delivering a child, but when you behold your son or you behold your daughter, that's the closest thing to heaven that you're ever going to find on earth. And it comes through a lot of pain. So these transitions, the end of fiat, there's people out there who want you to believe that Trump is this master worker who's going to save everybody from pain. That it's going to be easy on everybody. He's going to save us all. He's going to save Medicare. He's going to save Medicaid. He's going to save Social Security, and everybody's going to be fantastically rich. It's not how it's going to work. There's going to be pain. We're all going to have to eat some of it. But again, there's rays of sunshine. There's still a good, solid chance for freedom-loving people and people who like divine rights descended from God and not from government to actually promote their points of view and create a better future for everybody. It's awesome. I read somebody today, I don't know if it was on Twitter, because I mentioned yesterday having kids and the necessity of having children. I should stop playing with the mic because that's probably creating a lot of annoying noise for you people. Saying they didn't want to have kids, because I kind of poo-pooed the idea of not having kids to bring them into this horrible world. And, again, we talk about all the problems, but the fact is there's never been a more peaceful, better time. We have a lot of issues, but you can carve out a space for you and your family that's still really good, surrounded by wholesome, noble people and good ideas and values, and morals. You can still do it. And the one point the guy brought up was the price. He's like, how can you bring children in the world when they cost so much? I just want to remind everybody, if you're a broke pleb in Canada, your child is subsidized so that you'll never have to pay for their food or clothing if you're smart. They'll be able to eat healthy. They'll be able to wear good clothes because there's secondhand clothes everywhere to be had for dirt cheap, especially in Ontario and places like that where there's lots of people trying to off their clothes and there's less and less people having babies. Never been a cheaper time to have a baby, looked at from food and clothing. If you're poor. Now, housing and other expenses, it might be a problem, but I don't know if people are aware of that don't have kids. It is heavily subsidized. Probably should be subsidized even more. If there's one place the government may be able to build a case for redistributing income, it is to encourage the birth of citizens who actually have the values of the country kind of imprinted in their blood, whatever that blood is. Anyway, the documentary called The Illusion of Canada says it all. This needs to change. It's all a fraud. All right. So The Illusion of Canada. It is easily the most linked video I've ever seen on my channel. Everybody links me Illusion of Canada. I get emails every single week about this movie and about this thought process and these ideas. Here's the issue. It's all well and good. I'm aware, and I've talked on this channel about how Quebec never signed the new constitution, how the country was replaced, how our sovereignty has been given away and carved up, how the citizen has been screwed. All of these things are real. Many of the things in the Illusion of Canada are real. But what is likewise real, as a principle of power, is that those who possess power are power. They have taken the power, fraudulently or not, to tax you at source. And they have the cooperation of society in doing so. They have taken the power of the guns, the state's guns, to enforce their fiat laws. They have created a governing system where Parliament's not your government's appointed. They don't even have to pass a bill. They can just do an order in council, and they can stomp all over your rights. They can suspend the fake charter. It's amazing because your civil rights are fake in this country, and even those fake civil rights are too powerful that they have to suspend them every now and again. And when they're wrong, nothing happens. They have taken power, fraudulently or not, and they exercise that power, and thus that power is real. I agree it needs to change, but there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying you, Cheryl Otterbein, I'm not saying you, but there are people who write me that think that if I just wave around this magic piece of paper that makes all of these claims about how everything's fraudulent, it's going to somehow lead to a better outcome. It's not, because in a sense, you're right. The whole thing is a scam, but it is a scam that holds all the cards and all the power. Jan F says the Royals are done. I gotta check my text messages. Okay, good enough. The Royals are done. What they are guilty of will outshadow what Prince Andrew is being outed for. They are all guilty of crimes against children. It will not be for everyone to hear and listen to. Well, I, for one, certainly hope that these people who are guilty of those things are brought to justice and outed. I would love to see it. It worries me that we didn't get to see it with Epstein. It's like there's a cover-up. It's like there's some kind of agreement. Maybe the baton is changing hands from these terrible, horrible aberrations of humanity to a better class, and the rest of it's just going to be invisible. I don't know. It bothers me that there's not more immediate transparency. Not a single person's been charged. The Clintons are still out there living their lives. Some say they're not. Some say they've all been collected and rounded up, and now we're seeing nothing but people in latex masks or clones, outright clones. I get emails about the clones all the time. You know what? Why does it have to be so elaborate? It seems to me that why would you want to be the leader of some kind of truth movement, some revolutionary movement that's going to overthrow this order and then not tell anybody about it, and take out all the leaders and all the figureheads and then put everybody in costumes and send them out there to act out rules? Why would you do that? What's the point? What's the point of replacing them but keeping them alive? It just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Put some meat on those bones for me. I think something's afoot, but there's aspects of it that give me pause. I have optimism, but it's not a total optimism. It's not, I can't fall into hero worship memes and ideas any more than I can fall into some kind of messianic idea of a political leader saving us all. Like I can't get there. Faith for God alone, and then everything else is not even trust, but verify. Just verify. Speculate, but verify. Let's put it that way. Speculate, but verify. Think, reason, but draw as few conclusions as possible, because honestly, conclusions are the devil. When you have drawn an absolute firm conclusion and you are unalterable, you're closing yourself off. It's like the idea of settled science and consensus in science is the death of science. The death of reason is conclusion, closed doors, trying to keep an open mind. Doesn't mean that conclusions aren't possible. Water's wet. That's conclusive. Tim Kitchen says, how exactly does it dry up the money of his political enemies? You only have Trump's word that those boats were carrying drugs, and his word alone, not exactly all that newsworthy to me. Rosie Leb says again, maybe those two super labs that were busted might tell you something. One was hidden in Middle BC, caught because a shipment was stopped at the border and followed back to a gigantic lab. 2 weeks later, super lab in Ontario got stopped. Every charge was to an East Indian. They were a huge operation. It is the basket of evidence around what's happening in the Caribbean. You're right. AI could generate videos just like that, showing boats and submarines getting blown up. Take them off the table. Take it right off the table. Let's pretend they don't exist. You still have a military buildup in the region. You still have a much more mass-scale, U.S.-wide prosecution of drug runners, criminals, and human traffickers. Big emphasis on that, not just at the Department of Homeland Security, but at the Department of Justice. In spite of all the Epstein stuff, they're moving, and they're telling us they're moving on a bunch of these things, working to dry up that supply. Canada, as much as we're doing this elbows up nonsense, when it came time, first the media denied it, but then when it came down to it and Trudeau was still in office, He created a fentanyl czar, and we don't know what he's doing. We don't know what his budget is. We don't know what kind of office he has. We don't know if there's any progress. In fact, I covered on the channel not long ago when I went to the website, it was like they were making mock of the entire thing. It's like the liberal government still isn't taking it seriously. However, at the same time, these labs are getting busted. We're talking bail reform, and there's moves in the Canadian government which signal that they might be taking action because of U.S. pressure, but they don't want to tell the Canadian public that the United States was right, and we know they're right. I've shown on this channel the documentation about how right they are. There's no denying the level of cartel and criminal infiltration in Canada. But there seems to be signs that we're trying to bust it up and make a change, and it might be the result of this changing global dynamic, this change that's emanating from Washington and Trump. So we don't need to believe the boats. Personally, I do. Because of the basket of evidence around. You can dismiss them, that's fine. But there's all this other movement on the file that lends me to believe that the desire is sincere. And this is a man way before he was in politics. He's raised children who don't do drugs, don't drink, and don't smoke. Maybe Don Jr. has a cigar or something. I mean, there's nothing wrong with moderation. But the fact is, this is Trump's core philosophy. You don't see the people in his orbit bopping around and tweaking out like Chrystia Freeland did in Canada. I mean, you can kind of see the drug addicts in Parliament. Ebby hasn't slept since 1995. I mean, David Ebby looks like he's been on a bender his entire life. I don't know. You can see the quality difference between the Biden administration and the Trump administration. I think there's a genuine shift away from this sort of stuff. I could keep going for hours, but this is 43 minutes. I'm going to see how it works for you guys. If you liked it, if you want more like this, let me know in the comments. And again, thank you for all of it.